this meeting to order. Huntley informed me that he would not be able to make this evening's meeting. He was marginal on whether he'd be able to make it, so.
And Dick then is out of town, I
And
believe.
Dick notified that he was out of town. And he will not. And it seems we have 8 folks sitting around the table. And David, I'm going to ask you not to be a voting member this evening in order to honor Betsy Harding and allow her on her last meeting.
And that's for Rob?
That's if we let her go. That's if we vote to let her go.
This isn't that agenda or
Don't be
something.
at
Don't think it's allowed, actually. You have to shackle property set. Okay. I guess the first order of business, after we've decided who's the voting member, determination is to review the minutes from August 8th. Does everyone have a copy? Has everyone reviewed?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I moved for the minutes. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wow, we have made up our time difference. Good, thank you. All right. We have an interesting evening this evening, I think. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be fun to talk about. I will allow some public comment when it's appropriate, at the appropriate time, when we're talking about a particular item. But on the agenda, we have an opportunity for somebody to talk about stuff that's not before the planning board this evening. So is there anybody out there who would like to do that?
Do you want me to talk about mine? I thought Mr. Bennett was going to take care of it first.
Not, it's on, is your item on the agenda this evening?
I'm sorry?
Is what you're going to talk about on the agenda this
Yes.
evening? Then I don't want you to talk.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Not yet?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Ooh, we're making real good time. We're already past our deadline here. Maybe I'll get Chris on time for whatever game Izzy's looking for.
It's not the pass, I don't care.
Oh, okay.
It's just
All right. Next item is to review materials submitted by Danica Malone. Danica, you're here.
Hi, thank you for
Welcome.
having me again.
Would you come on up? I know it's not kosher entirely, but please come on up and say hi. Because we don't have exactly the kind of setup where you can.
Oh, I know how it is, yeah. So I did bring copies. Let me get these out. I apologize, I know that they're not good.
You did send these out beforehand for review.
Yes, but I
it
didn't
was
have
not.
people to print them.
Yes,
so-
no, I know, but this was
Yeah, so I figured it'd be easier if I printed
within the last couple of days, so you may or may not have had the opportunity to do that. Would you like a hard copy?
Yeah.
Love hard copy stuff.
This is a meeting on the 20th.
Yeah, I mean, there's something
There you go.
pages, right?
Covers everyone. All right.
Do you have one extra copy, because I'd like, or no?
I actually don't, but I
You can
can.
At the
You can have
end,
mine.
no, at the end, I'd like to make sure Huntley gets one.
Yeah. You
And
can
Dick
have
and-
We already have it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can send some printed copies.
that's okay. It's okay.
There you go. I have it.
As long as we get one to them eventually, that'll be good. All right. And then you know, Dick will want to hurry up.
Actually, they can have mine.
Oh, now she's just rubbing.
Ooh, rub it in, okay, please.
So the purpose of this was to make this, to go through to make sure that I was checking for spelling errors, anything that was redundant, grammar. Essentially, it was pretty foolproof the whole way through. I only found a few grammar and punctuation here and there, so those are changed. It's really just missing commas or missing hyphen. The other thing that I did was change the design, and I did make that compatible with just plain old regular Microsoft Word, so that it's going to be an easy succession for whomever comes into Jackson to take over this document and easily update it. The idea of the design is to make it as easy as possible, to just open it up and know where you are and try to find what you're trying to look for. And so I think for phase 2, I have some good ideas of what direction we can take to make it translated or more readable, but I'd love to get your feedback on the reorganization of it. And again, nothing's out of order, it's all the same, no language has been changed.
It is easy to read and navigate.
That's good.
Yeah, that's very nice.
And can you provide a copy showing the edits?
I can, yep.
As you went along, Danica, were there times where you thought, wow, the wording of this really doesn't carry the meaning that it ought to, or?
No, actually, I didn't. Fairly often, I thought that it was very reflective of the legal way you're supposed to describe something. You know, you use shall and herein, and I think it's more difficult for the general public maybe to understand because they're not used to reading that language. But for me and for what the purpose of the zoning ordinance is, I think it's pretty airtight. It covers it all. But in terms of the translation, that those are the areas where you can really dig in and have maybe a bubble off to the side or a different sort of panel on the other side of the page. That's going to be able to explain that in an easier, more layman's terms. But otherwise, I thought it was airtight. The only things I found were hyphens and punctuation here and there.
Thank you. Betsy says thank you.
Yeah, well, I would say kudos to these two. Because they have been the keepers.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought it was fantastic. There's only just a handful.
I like your layout,
Good.
and as a person who's been working with it on this question, you said it's in Word, so these section sides, they just, do they go along, but if you were to add more to it, or would you have to then adjust them?
You would have to adjust them, but that was the easier form of doing it. You need updated software if you wanted it to continue along with the page.
Yeah.
So for this, it's just pulling it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. The areas of floodplain hazard, were these last updated all the way back in 2012?
I suppose so.
And nothing's been done since then?
I guess not. That's what was in there at least.
Yeah, I went on FEMA the other day and everything looked like it was like 6-7 years old. And I was surprised because we've had, you know, what, a couple of floods in the last 2 or 3 years? And Charlotte, is it Charlotte? South Carolina is in a 500-year floodplain, and they have had 3 floods since 2015.
You may not to go there.
And trying to get a floodplain map from FEMA, I'm afraid that's way beyond my intellectual level. It was difficult.
And
Pretty sure we
actually,
have some here. On maybe the bottom shelf over there, I think we have some.
Okay.
We don't have any floodplains.
We don't have any?
You know, just the center of town.
Yeah.
We don't have planes, we just have one big.
We have one big field.
Well, part of it has got a lot.
but that does remind me, so I know that there was 2 versions, one with dates and one with no dates. This is the version with all of the dates in it, just so it's the most complete. I can also give you guys a version with no dates that just be taken out.
I think the town appreciates the dates and the assessor and so on, do, so we may as well.
Leave it in for now.
And it's totally unknown as to whether the dates are complete.
Yeah, it's sort of to the best of whomever's ability. It's updating it, right? Yeah. Yeah, none of that was changed, of course.
Okay. Good. That was the easy stuff.
It was the easy stuff.
Any further comment on this? Do you have some more to present to the team?
So the next phase of this process is phase 2, which as discussed previously, would be a translation, and I think that there's a couple different ways that it can be done. Before I have a couple examples that I'll let you guys look over. Originally, I had talked about doing something where it would be laid out with the original zoning ordinance on one side, and then you'd have like a translated layman's terms on the other side. And I have copies, so everyone can kind of look at what I'm talking about if you want to pass these around. So this could be the more in-depth version of what we could do, where I can do something on the side. It would be more like a guidebook that you move on to, in addition to the zoning ordinances. You can't change it. But I know that you guys are really looking for something lighter that won't be two separate documents. So what I was going to offer, and we had discussed this last time, I think it was your idea, was the bubbles. So this is what the bubbles could look like right here. And so it would really just be the same pages where there's bubbles going down the other side. It would be clear at the top that says this is just for your guidance. If you have questions, please reach out. So I have copies of those too if you want to pass those down, just so you guys can look it over and really think about it. But I think that the bubbles would be a better option. And then if you wanted to go further, my other suggestion was adding something to the appendix section, which could be as a reference guide. And my example is the town of Fitzwilliam, which is the town I used to be a planner for. And their appendix just had tables of reference that was fantastic as someone in the town, just to be able to pick this up and think, okay, what am I doing? And I don't know what district I'm in and what I can do. So you can just kind of go down the grid and see. And I think that could be very helpful in terms of helping people understand and get to the information faster. However, if you do have an appendix, you would have to do a warrant article. So that's the catch. The only thing that I can offer you with no warrant article would be the bubbles or the translation on one side and the plain text on the other. Appendixes are helpful. That's why I didn't really put one together though for you, because I wasn't sure if you'd be interested in a warrant article for it, but it can be easy. You can kind of go through, you can see what are all the allowed principal uses, accessory uses based on district. You can see what sort of applications you need based on the use in the district. And for me, it was something that was very easy and very, tends to be used by other towns, but of course you have to consider that for a warrant article if you're interested.
Is it easier for someone that works for the town, or is it easier for the town?
I find it's easier for both, because I used to work very closely with engineers and surveyors, and they just kept it open to the appendix A so they can flip through these last 5 pages right here. And for someone working in the town, if you really aren't familiar with the full zoning ordinance, it's nice to be able to just say, oh, let me see if I can help you, and go, okay, well, this is your district, and it says right here you can have 100 feet of frontage. And it kind of helps you get to the answer a little bit quicker. I think it is a good option for making it more readable, but again, I do want to make sure everyone's clear that there would be a warrant article if you did want to go with it.
And is it an appendix?
It would be an appendix. I think it would fit best as an appendix, because it would just be a guidance addition at the end of it, just to help people, but anything that changes whatsoever with an addition like this.
So you would keep the body of the way it's set up now, with whatever edits, and add an appendix to make it more in layman's terms.
Just the very end, yeah. Just kind of like a quick reference at the end saying, yep.
Sort of a summary, yeah.
Yep.
Would that be more money?
No. So what I thought would be the best option was to give you guys something that you could put in as an appendix that kind of reflected what those core regulations are in your districts, like setbacks, frontage. Those are the things that people tend to be trying to quickly look for that have a hard time flipping through tons of pages. And then I could also do bubbles along the side, so that it helped to clarify some of those jargon sections. But if we're looking to do something more in-depth and comprehensive, we can definitely do kind of like a guidebook like this, where it would be plain text on one side.
But you're saying doing this plus an appendix, correct?
Yep. And we can do the other plus an appendix as well. I've looked at both of those for my hours and my budget, and that's fine. But I do want to give you the option of doing either.
Thoughts?
I like the bubbles and I like the appendix, that you could go to, something very, very quickly. And maybe the appendix would reference back sections and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yes, that's what it should be.
Yep.
Because we only have the 2 districts at this point. And so there's not that many, it's not like a larger town which has 7 or 8 districts, and you have to figure out what goes to what. And so that, the appendix then would only cover part of what's in the zoning ordinance. And I like the ideas of the bubbles. I think that makes more sense than trying to just rewrite it.
Try to reference it, yeah.
Yeah, in this way, I know from my own experience of, when we're trying to do an amendment, and want people to vote on it, and then having to do a press release. Well, what's it gonna say? And I end up having a real hard time not using the jargon, because if you do anything else, you're losing some of the effect of it.
Yeah, and that's what's surely difficult about it, but I think that in terms of what you guys are looking for, especially for finding the information faster, making it easier for just the general public, it's nice to be able to have these sections to be like, okay, I just want to put a shed on my property, what do I need to know about that? And then you have these back pages that say, oh, there we go, I need an application for a special exception, there's the frontage, all set.
Dan, help me understand that. Because you said we have to this warrant article, nobody wants to warrant article, probably. So is the bubble version going to be a separate version of this anyway? Or is
It would be, yes.
So why can't we attach an addendum to the bubble version
We
and call
could.
it a day?
Yep.
And then we don't have to talk to the warrant article people?
Yeah, you don't have to talk to them at all, so you could do a quick
Would that
guide.
work?
So I'm gonna refer to it as a quick guide, so you have your zoning ordinance, which is the legal binding document that you guys all have on file, and then we could do a quick guide, which will have either the bubbles, will be written out with the bubbles, and then you can do the appendix in the back, or you could do plain text and then translate it on one side, and then the appendix in the back of that.
I would suggest talking to the Julies, maybe Kathleen, to see where and how much misunderstanding or confusion what we already have has. One, to direct anything we do. I mean, we're trying to make it clearer, but we're also adding a lot of verbiage to the document. And in a way that makes
I think people would go directly to the appendix or the bubbles. I don't think they, quite frankly, read the document, so I think it would actually simplify things.
Well, but then they're not getting maybe the exact.
I was going to ask Kevin.
I was going to say, you should
Yeah.
ask Kevin, because
Kevin,
normally when they go,
yeah.
don't have an answer to a question,
I was gonna
call
say-
Kevin.
Yeah, so how many questions
call
do you
it.
get? I
Yeah.
mean, do you think the appendix would be helpful for the folks that are looking to you to say, where can I build, what can I build? Or even to Burr or anybody else, or any other contractors?
Maybe you want to show Kevin this stuff?
That's a good question. I mean, I'd have to see what.
Yeah.
You're gonna pass this back to me?
Ask somebody who knows.
And Danica, do you know Kevin?
I don't know.
Oh, he's our building inspector.
Oh, okay, great.
So he gets his hands in a lot of it.
I'm sure.
And he's also, he works with the fire department
Okay.
very closely too.
So that's the zoning ordinance, and this is what I was suggesting for the
Well,
appendix.
she's talking about that.
It's not very well laid out, this is in other
Is there a
towns, but
hesitation
this is an
for
example of
warrant
how the
article?
appendixes are attached to the zoning ordinance. So you can sort of
Well,
filter these.
that would be a formal change if it's attached to the actual
Uses are allowed,
document.
principal or accessory.
Then it would
It did
require
make things a
the
bit
warrant
easier, I know that you guys
article.
have you guys. can
Other than
have
it's
very
a
different
formality,
allowed
and
uses for
also
districts
if we
or
attach it
that,
to
but
the
having it in one
formal
place to
document,
quickly
it
reference.
means it would need to be
I found it easier for people to vote.
maintained and officially updated and.
It would have to be accurate.
Yep,
and
that sounds great.
exactly accurate and all that good stuff, so.
And if it's just for a guide, then
So it's not just the warrant article, it's the maintenance
It's
beyond that,
It
et
would be
cetera.
the maintenance that I would be concerned about.
Okay, that was,
And that was,
yeah.
warrant article is not a
Sounds
big
so
deal.
easy
but-
when you just say warrant article.
Yeah,
But
you do a warrant article, no
just
problem.
throw another one, yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah, the piece of that, and if you've ever maintained any document ever, God help you, where page changes because you added 3 more lines, and then you have to change all reference points forever and ever.
Yep.
And I know there's software that's a little bit smarter these days that can do some of that if you set it up correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that means that that's one more thing that we have to be concerned about if we're maintaining the document. And we've tried, I think, at least what I've perceived is that the keepers have tried to keep this document as condensed as possible and as to the point, and try to keep as few things into our ordinance as we can.
I guess I would still suggest the same thing.
I agree.
And with all due respect, Kevin deals with building, we're dealing with zoning. That's a different thing, and it's really, you know, responding to Joyce, they get the first questions, do I need,
Yep.
you know, can I do this for a subdivision, can I do that? And so having a better idea of what our needs are.
I'll ask you if you need this, and if you need this, we'll do it maybe, because she said she'd do it and fit it in the budget. And if it,
Oh, I think that's a good idea, yeah. I mean,
if you really don't want it, just,
but also, there's some wording that doesn't correspond from the zoning to the building code that I noticed. And now just the legislation and the Senate and the governor signed the newest building codes or whatever. And if you go in there and read what is law, which is RSA 155-A, and you read what's written there, doesn't, some of the word is different in here. Like the need for a building permit or whatever, the wording's not the same, and it should be, because it's law. And there's a little confusion here about the $10,000 value. That should be reworded in there, because it's kind of a catch-all if you don't, if it's not required under a building permit, but when you're doing $80,000 worth of work, let's just say, yeah, you should have a building permit. So there's some wording in it that needs to be changed. And I highlighted a lot of the spots in there that you guys will look at and go over.
okay, so some of those wording issues are going to be part of what you're actually doing for the next phase, right?
It can be, if anything's, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Depending on how significantly it's changed, that would require a warrant article as well.
No, I appreciate that, well, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, we should connect then, and we can
should,
talk
yeah.
about.
And I think most of it, I mean, it's just rewording. Like I said, it is law that the state has just passed.
Yeah.
It's RSA.
So you'd want to reflect that, of course.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, okay,
So,
great.
On that point, I received these, there's an error in our wonderful reading books. So that's just to be inserted on page 99.
Oh, one for each.
One for each on your red book.
Got it. Is that the one? or is
Red
that the
book,
extra?
that's the one.
Oh, okay, so I'll take this one.
Further discussion? Did you get what you needed?
I did, I think that you guys want to talk a little more about what you're looking for phase 2. Or were you set on just doing the bubbles in the appendix as a secondary document to the zoning ordinance? That would be like a guide.
Like a quick guide, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Do we need to have a vote for that, or do we just?
On my end, no, you don't.
How much,
Who's my parliamentarian here?
how much more money is that?
There is none
That's
more.
within the budget.
That's a
I'm
great
sorry, I was
idea.
missing that part, what were you discussing?
Are we okay with going with the bubble approach
I think I would.
versus the schedule approach?
Yes.
And then a quick guide.
Then an appendix.
And
And I don't think there's a need a vote, if there's no more money involved.
I don't, well, I'm open to the floor. If somebody feels we need to vote, we'll vote. And if we don't feel we need to vote, we won't.
Before we close the discussion, I would love to also see, instead of this copy of our zoning districts that's been around forever, I'd love to have us have one that could be on the computer where people could expand it and see, oh, there's where my house is, or whatever, so that they can get a really good idea. How much extra is that?
I'm not the mapper actually, so my colleague is the expert mapper. I can ask him. Do you have anything already on computer that you can start with?
I know it's on Granite.
Okay, perfect.
So if people could just add our current zoning onto Granite.
I believe as long as it's already on granite, it's pretty easy, it's like smooth sailing for him.
Because it's a link grade.
Yep.
He would have to add he'd have to take the wording of the zoning and,
Yep, he knows how to do all of that, that's his
Great.
expertise. But I'll talk to him and see how much time that'd take him, and I can send you a number. I can't imagine it'd be a lot at all. And that can be also added to the appendix, secondary document, yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. If anyone has anything else, please reach out. Yeah, thank you. And congratulations on your last meeting.
It was exciting.
That's what she thinks.
Oh, geez.
She's been trying to stay for years.
Oh, boy. You're almost there.
Maybe it's.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
thanks, Ken.
Kevin's gonna be in touch with them with something.
I think they're.
I'm not, but my phone,
Alrighty.
I work remotely. My work phone goes right to my cell phone, so if you call. Okay.
Type it already?
Oh, boy. So the highlighted section of this evening's conversation discuss ideas and information about possible regulations or ordinances the town might use concerning short-term rental, STRs. Town building inspector Kevin Bennett to help sort out issues. That means, come on down, please.
There's flowers on that seat. There's flowers right there on the seat.
Don't worry about it. I don't know what I'll see.
How'd you like to be greeted with flowers? Come on.
There you go. Bill, were you out of town when a series of articles were in the local paper?
I have just seen the most recent article on the 100 homes that are currently listed on Airbnb.
Yeah, but I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, I was out
Last week,
week.
yeah, I knew it was, so I just wanted to have you go back into your, Conway may be doing all of this for us, and so.
They may be doing that, and I think I'm going to plan on attending their meeting, just to be a fly on the wall. And I would recommend that any of us who are interested do so as well. And yeah, they may be doing a lot of the same work, and that's good. I just assume.
Laconia, with the work with
Yeah.
Laconia that you.
I just assume they work and we piggyback if there's an opportunity, but I guess their situation is also exceptionally more complex with the number of districts they have, the volume they have, which is phenomenal. You haven't seen that report in the Sun. Put a pretty good handle on exactly what the activity level is here in the valley. And it is quite significant.
Yeah.
It's all across the country, it isn't just here.
Right.
No,
And this is something that's been going on a long time. It's nothing new, but it's just a new fad right now.
it's a new way to market housing, temporary housing in a wonderful setting. And we've been doing it for years. We used to do it, we go through that wonderful history that's been put together for Jackson and see that the housing alternatives have been phenomenally diverse over the last 100 years. So it's just another format, another form. But, but it also reminds that we have a responsibility to the town and to the people who live here that things be conducted in a way that is good for everyone. I believe you've done some homework, Scott, is that correct?
Well, I think why we're hoping you can be here, Kevin, is what Laconia is doing is not necessarily restricting short-term rental, at least as a first step. They're more looking to create a registration process.
Yeah, but I've read a lot of that stuff from, Laconia.
Okay. So basically, if you want to do any type of short-term rental, you have to apply to the town to do it. And as part of the application process, your home is inspected and, you know, you need to have all the, you know, functional smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, access and egress, et cetera. So that's something that we're looking at, maybe at least as a basis for, you know, some sort of doing something with short-term rentals.
I did read though in minutes from the selectmen's meeting that you guys have talked about that, or can you help fill me in on what that discussion was?
Well, it was because Elizabeth came to the meeting, really. And yes, so she had come to the selectmen's meeting because there was a situation in her direct neighborhood around her house. So we talked about what the planning board was moving to doing as far as trying to set up some regulations. And that, so they, you know, there was the situation in her neighborhood, but then we, Kevin and Jay were also talking about, like you said, the fire egresses and making sure that the properties are safe. And not that we've had a large amount of situations that have become, or have been notified as being unsafe, but there have been two circumstances that were really pointed out where there were beds in the basement and there was no exit. There were no windows in the basement. There was no way out other than getting up the stairs. So, you know, we want to make sure places do get registered through this process that we're creating and try to make sure that, like you said, your neighbor doesn't buy a house for his summer house and then it ends up being an Airbnb for 15 to 20 people. So, and I don't know if we want to hear Elizabeth, but that's what the original.
Well, I would like you to, and I just want to make sure
that's what the conversation was.
That we're not working it several different ways.
Nope.
And we've already talked about this stuff. And I think what would be instructive, if Kevin, if you could lay out, you know, at least generally, you know, what are the requirements in terms of, you know, these type of safety measures for, you know, plain residential, you know, and the various classifications we already have in Jackson, whether it's classification of you know, type of establishment or number of people, just so we have sort of an outline of what's in place already. And
yeah, I'll give you some examples. I mean, one of the things I see is it's a couple houses that are being rented and they're only designed for 2 bedrooms.
Can I do me a favor, because I'd like to, what you're saying, be able to be heard by you guys.
Yep.
Sorry.
And your backs to them, and if you could just turn your chair a little bit, and that would be really helpful.
So I noticed there's a couple houses that basically they only either have 2 or 3 bedroom septic systems. And just for an example, there's one right here in Jackson. It says it sleeps 12, and there's only 2 bedrooms.
Right.
So, and I noticed there's 38 pictures on the website.
We have to be very friendly.
so when we say 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom, or 4 bedroom, what does that mean in terms of number of people?
Basically, the septic system's based on the bedroom count. So basically, you're probably thinking a bed with two people.
So it's 2 bedrooms, 4 people.
So
Right, yeah, basically, right. In a kitchen and probably, you know, and then either 1 or 2 bathrooms for those 2 bedrooms.
Is there a legal basis to that? In other words,
There is, yeah, DS. Basically, it's, you know, it's based on soil types and what the soils can hold and how much waste you're putting into the
But I
ground.
can't-
Density of people, I guess.
I mean, I can't advertise I have 2 bedrooms and I sleep 12.
You shouldn't be, no, there should be a limit.
Yeah.
But there's no legal I mean, there's no 2 bedrooms equals 5 people or 2 bedrooms equals 3 people.
There is a gallons per day.
Okay.
So with 4 people, you could go on the list and say each person uses, you know, between showers, food, washing machine, whatever else, this is how many gallons used per day.
What if it's not occupied during the week, but just on the weekend? Is that?
Well, that's a good question, because I mean, and then, you know, it gets a little bit of a vacation, put it that way, and then on the weekend it gets hit hard
Yeah.
and overused, and that's where the real problems will pop up.
And if they're not on town water,
Yeah,
then you gotta measure that somehow, so I don't think measuring gallons is probably not.
I remember when Chief of Police Perley was in here and he talked about that. And he said that he wouldn't be looking through the ads to say, we sleep 12, but he would be looking at the parking, and if there were a dozen cars out there, and then, again, what Conway's talking about is not the people that are renting it, it's the owner of the home that you know, you should probably be going after.
But maybe as part of a registration process, we can set a definition, whether it's a legal definition or not. We can still say, if they're regulated for X number of bedrooms, that's X times 2 number of people, period. And you know, that way, if you only have 3 bedrooms, it's 6 people, not 12.
And actually, this house was one of the houses that I came in here Monday morning and they had many, many complaints about.
Yeah, noise.
So anyway, it's.
And there's 2 sides to it too, because, you know, you can have the folks that advertise the 2-bedroom sleeps 4, but 8 people end up showing up because they invite their friends, and there's not much you can really do about that as long as we're starting at the front end on, you know, then you want to contact the owner of the house saying, did you know you're having a party here this weekend?
Right.
You know, that becomes more Chief Hurley's area, as long as we're doing our due diligence on the front side and trying to get people to advertise and register their home for what it really should be. 8, you know, 4 people, not 8 or 20.
But if there's no legal side, I'm a homeowner and I want to advertise like a 2-bedroom and I want to advertise 8 people. Isn't there something that there's no legal stance?
There isn't that I know of.
Right, but we can create a legal basis.
That's why there's a.
We can say two, you know, you have to register to do short-term rental, and, you know, as part of that registration, you know, requirement, it's 2 people per bedroom.
Except for the fact that you have bunk beds in there, which a lot of ski people do. They come up here to go skiing. And you're talking about
kids, 2 families with kids.
Yes,
it's tough.
Well, yeah, we used to
Well,
sleep 6
and I'm
kids up
saying too,
in the
I mean,
attic,
we
you
can
know,
choose
so-
a different number. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we can define what we want.
And then,
Yeah, I mean,
It would be problematic. Anything we're looking at here, where you're trying to set a standard that is not in, that's why I was asking, is there a legal definition for any of this? And if there's none, if we try to create some measure that can't be substantiated in any way, we have the risk of creating something that anybody looking at it would say, you know, that's arbitrary. That's somebody pulled that out of the air, and somebody said that's way. And yes, we sleep 6 kids in the bunk area, you know, because that's what we've always done, and they only take 2x4 space. And you know.
But I don't think 2 people per bedroom is arbitrary. I think that's a common usage. You know,
So I guess my point is that whatever we do, we need to be careful to come as close as we can to something that's reasonable, that everyone looking at it would say, that's pretty reasonable.
yeah, I think the 2 things to really look at is, first one is just life and safety. And number 2 is protecting the groundwater.
Right.
Because once you get into a contaminated well, you got problems.
Yeah.
And
You get a lot of
I can only think
choices
of one
past
place
that.
in town right now that has that. Right now.
and then the owner needs to take care of it and deal with it.
So, yeah,
And it's
it's
gonna
quite
cost them
done.
money because
Money.
They resolve it.
So in terms of, you know, having to have egress from a basement, what forces that requirement?
So in the building code and in the fire code, it's basically it's an opening that has 5.7 square feet of opening.
Right, but what requires that?
Oh, it's the building code which the state adopts and the fire code.
No, I mean, does every home that has a basement have to have egress?
If you're calling it a bedroom, well, there's people who are sleeping in there, yes.
So it's a bedroom.
Yeah, so they're not calling it a bedroom, but there's a bed in there, or a bunk bed, or whatever, or even sleeping
Or
bags.
sofa, yeah.
You're basically
Yeah.
sleeping
And
there.
that's the universal building code that we all use?
Yes, yeah, they adopted from the International Code Council,
Yeah.
and most states adopt that,
Yeah.
and
I think
then
that's
they make some
wrong.
amendments to it sometimes.
And is there a point in terms of sprinklers or, you know, additional requirements based on number of people or classification?
In one or two family homes, that is not a requirement, and they keep fighting over that.
The sprinkler, you mean?
Yes, right. So, but a sprinkler can give, like if you have a basement without windows, you can put a sprinkler in, and then that would satisfy the egress basically. So, but then the whole house would have to be sprinkled that way. Yeah. So there's ways out. But and then there's a couple of houses that I noticed. There's one house in town right now. It says it's got 5 bedrooms. It only has 3. I know because I've been in many times in the last 10 years with Jackson Bar Ambulance, just doing lift assist, and there's not one egress window in the whole entire house.
And it all takes is one incident.
Well, that's true, right, exactly, right. And it's, when the place fills up with smoke and you want to get out, and you're going to do everything you possibly can to get out. Get a nice window.
Kevin, I guess my question would be, we're going to go through this, we're going to come up with something, and it's going to be defined, and we'll come up with this and that, and hopefully it'll meet your requirements and everyone here's requirements. And when we go to a vote in the spring, people will vote for it. My question is, for you, whatever that is, how difficult is it going to be for you to monitor that or to work with it, assuming that we're going to have some requirement that says we're going to have registrations, because that's for sure, and then we're also going to have some sort of indicators for those who are registered that they're going to have to meet certain requirements. You're going to have to go through a process to be able to monitor that. How difficult will it be for you to establish a process? You got 100 units.
Well, I think just the life and safety thing, once they meet that requirement by either, putting new windows in or doorway in or whatever, and having up-to-date smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, because usually those are good for 10 years. And I don't know, there'd be like a yearly or every other year like inspection or something of those, the windows and everything else. But the overuse, that's difficult. The place is packed with 15 people. How do you know?
So before we get to that, because that really comes maybe down to driveway or parking. That's the easiest and best indicator. But just in terms of your job, do you see each new registration requiring an inspection, and then in many cases a follow-up inspection because they didn't meet all the requirements the first time around, plus an inspection every 2 or 3 or 4 years? Does that seem like a reasonable?
It does, yeah. And I think, it's probably like 80 or 90% of the places you're never gonna have problems with. A lot of the places with modern homes and everything, it's the ones that don't meet requirements right now.
And so
need to be brought up to code.
So would that mean that that means you'd actually physically have to go see the structure and then possibly do a follow-up if there's
a problem, correct, yeah.
Normally you do that for what? You do that kind of thing right now for
permits.
For
correct.
permits.
Yep.
What kind of time involvement is that for you?
Well, I think Jay and me were discussing that. By the time you do the paperwork, go out, inspect, do some more paperwork, come back, more paperwork probably.
Always.
Realistically, it's probably like 3 hours per place.
Okay. So if we're throwing 100 of these at you, that's like 300 hours worth of work.
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
And there'd be an application.
Would we have?
Give you time and a half.
There you go.
There's a warrant article for it. No, I'm just kidding. What about, is there really 100
Yeah.
in town?
And that's only Airbnb.
Wow. I didn't know there were that many.
And there may be others. And they may be cross-listed on others, but there are at least 100.
Would there be a legal problem? Suppose somebody lives here all the time and they have guests come up for the weekend, family and friends, and there's more than 2 people to a bedroom. You tell them to go away?
Only if they're charging those guests.
Only if they're charging, okay.
Yeah, we're trying to deal with short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Unless they're charging them, it's not a short-term rental.
I didn't know if there was a conflict of
I was
interest
going to
there.
say, we're
legal
going to create
con-
a black market for rentals now.
Yeah, that's,
And so,
usually with the financing page.
Yeah,
for parking, I mean,
yeah.
probably the one indicator that there are a lot more people than there should be is that there's a lot more cars than there should be. What do we have for restrictions for parking? for
They're pretty
residential?
creative about parking cars too, because I see a place on Thornhill all the time. And I know they park 2 cars in the garage, and there's 5 cars in that little tiny little driveway that's like this. And they got them sideways and.
We don't have anything now for residential.
No,
right?
but and I think that's, I think that's a 4-bedroom and they're advertising as 5 too. Almost positive of that.
And what do we have for commercial? Is there?
You mean like regulations on what's allowed or not?
Well, what's required, by a restaurant in town, how many parking?
Oh, yeah, there's it's based on what you're classifying the establishment as, and then there's a list of what's recommended for employees and clients or customers or whatever.
You could always adopt some of that over, and say if we're gonna.
There's a table in the.
Yeah, there's a part, it's on page 17.
17.
Yeah.
Dwelling units.
I think that comes out of code council too, I think.
Easy to find them.
Yeah, very easy to
Yeah.
find, yeah. But if it becomes a public accommodation of a hotel, motel, lodging house, then is it different than a dwelling unit?
Well, again, I think we could
then
specify our own
define
for this
it,
particular
right.
thing and say, again, for every bedroom, 1.5 cars or something. Although maybe based on the area that have 4 parking as well.
And just another thing to think of is I saw down North Conway, I saw someone, they're renting a trailer now. It's quite cute with the whole entire setup, nice trailer, backyard's all nice and clean and all that, but that's their Airbnb, is the trailer.
What?
And I'm just thinking, and over in Chatham, there's a guy over there who's got a school bus, it's like a hippie school bus, he's got 2 tree houses, he's got 1 or 2 teepees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to think about, because right now, if someone came in here and said, well, I'm gonna put a trailer in my driveway and rent it out, I don't think there's anything in the zoning that can stop that. They could call an accessory, I don't know, they call it accessory apartment, or it's, they could register it, so it's, it's probably good for 180 days for a temporary structure. I don't know where to go with it, you know what I'm saying? It's just something to think
It's something to think about,
Yeah,
when we're
I'm
writing
sure
up
that-
this, yeah.
I'm sure the neighbors, if you had a trailer pull into your neighbor's driveway and people are going in and out there every weekend, you might be upset.
Are there any things that you would really like to see in us, in whatever it is we put together? I mean,
I think it's just like I said, the life and safety thing and not to, contaminate the groundwater.
Yeah.
Because anything else, I mean, it's.
Well, some of the other factors are not ones that are easily contained. if you
Yeah,
will.
right, and most of the time it's not a problem. I mean, just a family renting a house, they're quiet,
Yeah.
they're up here for vacation, and everything else. It's the troublemakers or whatever, the problem
And
places.
some of our other ordinances, like noise ordinances, other things ought to manage some of those things, but
To what extent would the town be liable if we're not enforcing something like this and somebody died in a fire in the basement or something?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking of that because I think the 2 places that I've talked to Jay about, I think the town, or me as a building inspector and the fire chief, we should send a letter out, just saying that you have 40 pictures on this website. We noticed that, there's no egress windows in the place at all. Who knows about smoke detectors? And that's another, I mean, believe it or not,
And
that's
you
another
happen to
issue.
know about that building, but there may be, 3 or 20 or something or other others that
Right,
are somewhat
exactly.
similar.
Yep. So, I mean, the ones that we know about and we've discussed, you know, so now it's like, yeah, if something happened there. Yeah,
Maybe
it's,
putting it out on e-news or something.
No, that wouldn't be satisfactory.
It would.
No, I think it would have to be a certified letter to make sure they get it and they received it on the other end. And then have them either call us and say, yes, we're gonna address the problem in the next, whatever, 90 days or whatever.
I heard another town, I forget where it was, but they have a requirement now that every place that's short-term rental either have an owner or somebody responsible for it on premises, or they have a manager that they hire. I wonder if we want to consider something like that, so that it would be a direct contact with somebody saying, here's the problem we've seen.
There is, you know, there is something like that already. Anyone who has an alarm system in this town, I mean, nobody even follows the laws that are on the books about that. Because before you put an alarm in your house that dials out, that's the key. You're supposed to get a written permission from the fire chief. And that's right in NFP 100 or 1, I forget what it is, but it's in there. And number two is, when you do have an alarm system in there, there's supposed to be like a registered caretaker, and the fire department is supposed to have access to a Knox box.
Wow.
So every house, commercial or 1 or 2 family residence, should have a Knox box. So if there is a fire or whatever, you know, a lot of times we get calls and we sit there and wait until a caretaker comes, or even if one does come, and then we look, and if we can't get in the place and everyone's sick and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, we're like, man, let's get out of here. You know, it's like that type deal, but that should be enforced. You know, the Knox box thing. The alarm company people kind of laugh about it because they're like, oh, you're going to get, there's 180 or 190 residential alarms in this town and probably about 10 commercial. But they kind of laugh, they're like, yeah, you're going to make everyone get a Knox box? Well, a lot of towns do. Berlin doesn't even allow alarm systems.
My
Most towns
former
don't even
town
allow
is,
it.
you did not have it, and you had a buy for the first one. The second one came with a $10,000 fine.
Oh,
Wow.
we'd be rich.
It came with a $10,000 fine. Thank you very much.
There you go. Yeah, the town would be definitely
So
rich.
guess how many people get their lockbox after the first time?
Let me see, we're probably about 20 residential homes that have Knox boxes. Especially the last one because we broke the door down.
Yeah.
Because they had a flood. The water was pouring through the
I mean, I can't
seal
tell
it,
you
so it took the door
100%,
down.
right? It was pretty close to 100%.
But I think a lot of people, now that you know that you can have a Knox box, they're like, oh yeah, that's great. We're not around and we want you to get in the house. and get
Absolutely,
involved.
yeah. Yeah, it's a great thing to have.
What
I
is
have
this
one at my
Knox
house.
boxes?
Oh, all right. So Knox box is it's a commercial name for a company, and everyone just like everyone uses it. So it's a box on the outside of your house. You put the keys in there, and then there's a universal key to that box.
Like
and
in the
that's,
TSA, you know, they
and that's stored in the.
your
There's
bag.
different ways to store those keys. Some towns have them locked in fire trucks, where the dispatcher has to push a code and lock the actual key so you get access to it. But most of these places, well, almost all of them, they have fire alarms. They also have burglar alarms. So the theory is, like, nobody's just going to take the key and go into someone's house because the alarm's going to go off. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of the theory. But I think Conway actually has them locked up in the fire trucks. So the dispatcher has to, like I said, push a button and it's all, record what time that key was unlocked.
There's also electronic boxes that you can open with your phone, if you have the app.
Which doesn't help if. Okay. Would you like to
I
make a
think he's
comment?
doing a good job. It's going to take a while, and it's never going to be perfect.
Right.
Never. So it's just some ordinance with reasonable ordinance, and that's about all you can do. And hopefully it all goes well. But if you have nothing, then it's like, yay.
Yes, right now we have a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's a free-for-all. Yeah.
That's not good. Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it. If there's anything that you have along the way If you're watching and we do these things, we'll keep on peppering you with stuff to make sure you're informed. But if there's anything at all you think we're going the wrong way, or we're not doing something that you'd like us to do, or we forgot something, please let us know.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I think.
And I think we can piggyback a little bit off of Conway, I think, if they're going to do this and they're going to do it full bore.
Yeah.
I assume they're going to do it more quickly than not, but if not, then we may be ahead of them, who knows? But at least we'll hear the noise from them. And actually noise is the thing that probably
Caused the problem.
causes the most trouble for outwardly for people.
Yeah.
I mean, people really are mostly concerned about groundwater.
I am actually in our neighborhood.
Well, I mean, it's not the first thing you think about.
No, you don't. Of course, my husband does. Yes.
It's not the first thing you think about is what's going on with the groundwater. It's just like,
Yeah.
when those people shut up, or how many parked cars are
Yeah.
flowing out into the street, and the amount of nuisance it is. But from where we sit and how we have to work, I think you're right on, Kevin. It's like, is it safe? Does it deal with the groundwater properly? Does it deal with, as Scott's talked about, the parking issues? The basics, the real basics.
And the fire pits that it started.
And if you're taking care of those, it would seem to me that noise ordinances should be able to take care of noise if it's just simply noise. But you're going to reduce the number of opportunities where we're going to have situations where we have to do that and we have to worry about it. I would suggest that, and you were talking about warrant articles, that if we do this and we do put a process where we're going to throw several hundred hours at you initially and possibly another 30, 60 hours of activity every year or more, that we come up with some fee-based process that pays for your time based on what your time requires, so that it's a paid-for event. It's not something we're going to put on the general taxpayer. We're going to put it on the person who wants to offer out their property in this way, and they do it similar to a permit process. And come up with a way for that to work for you properly.
That makes sense, yeah, for the town, right?
And
I can see a permit process where they have to renew it every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
and it has
And
3 years.
if they, got any violations, maybe we don't let them through.
Yeah, or rescind your permit,
Yeah.
whatever.
I like that process.
Yeah.
Processes.
But does that make sense?
It does, and that sounds fair. I
Yeah.
mean, you play with the rules and whatever, you go with the rules and.
Because I don't want to pay
Understand
for
no
it.
problem, right?
I don't want to pay for it.
Oh, yeah,
It's not,
great.
it's not my interest. to
Right,
pay
yeah, it's
for
like a
that.
building permit thing,
Right.
But she wants to offer their house
out.
out.
Permits, no fee.
Not to be the voice of no government in my life, but what about the ones that are existing here already?
I'm sorry?
How can you force the ones that are already here, that are already in business, to do this if they were open and operating before?
You can make your regulation immediate.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can,
Sure
yeah.
can.
It's like saying no smoking in this building. Just because you were smoking here last week doesn't mean you can smoke this week.
Yeah, you guys can pass
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of backlash from it,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you're gonna
but-
hear, because it's my property.
Yeah.
Well, it is
It's
your
not-
property, and I think the point is that it's been unregulated, and they've got a benefit of about $1 million in their pocket.
I'm just.
And I think
Devil's
that
advocate.
if they wish that flow to continue, they have to meet with the requirements of the town. If they don't, they don't.
They can, they can always sue, but good luck. I mean, if they don't agree with it, let them take it to court
I mean,
and see how strong
But
our
well, the
regulations
other
are.
thing is, what if they don't register? I mean, so then we are talking about an enforcement, and that would go beyond. So once we put this in place, once we say everyone that has an Airbnb advertised or a short-term rental has to register, then what if they don't? And that's when we talk to Chief Curley and see what kind of enforcement there would have to be and what type of penalty, and go from there. Or what if they,
I think we could have some sort of requirement that says, you're required within so many
90 days of
the act to have your,
Mhm.
to register.
And if
And if you fail to register,
and you're caught, you're
Yeah.
in deep, you know what?
I would
Yeah.
put a fine on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Real simple.
And we'll evict your people that come rent your place, will knock on the door, and they'll never come back.
That's right.
And I would imagine we could probably get a few residents to do some reviews online.
Oh, for sure.
To
Yelp and,
to voluntarily do
Yeah.
that and, provide some information.
Well, on the positive side of that too, having this registration and certification that they are a safe dwelling could be a really nice selling point. And,
Oh, for sure.
people will say,
Yeah.
well, thanks, but no thanks. But it will be nice that says,
When
in the
they
town of
advertise 10,
Jackson, we
it's 10.
certify that it's safe
Yeah,
and,
right, yeah.
yeah.
So it could work out. I agree.
And something else, maybe the majority of people don't even think that when they go to rent, whether there's whether there's
Alarm or
alarm or
egress or.
exactly.
Or what's really scary is they think towns like us have regulations to make it safe.
Mhm.
But
That's the scary part.
That would also be a selling point to say that, we're registered with the town as a, we pass the safety regulations and all that kind of stuff.
Kevin, could you let us know what part of 155A our zoning ordinance is in opposition to? Could you just send a note or something about it?
Oh, I mentioned 155.
155A.
That's the bill that the governor just signed, and that's the,
But what part of it?
it's basically the building code.
But what part of our zoning ordinance is in opposition?
Oh, there's the actual wording on the, one of them is the part about the requirement for a building permit. Because there's like 4 words, and I mean, I could tell you, hang on a second.
Okay.
You don't have it memorized yet?
No, I don't.
How
because
long
it's
has it
like-
been out?
No, it's like lawyer language.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
think
not in the zoning ordinance. was it?
It's in the, the zoning, it's on the back, it's 16.2.1. It's the requirement for building permits, and basically you guys are using the words construct, extend, remove, or alter. And in the building code,
Ooh, got new words.
yeah, I think it says requirement to.
Does it add more requirement then? or-
No, it's just a wording.
It's just a wording?
Yeah, it's just a wording,
Does it change what you do?
basically because it's, like I said, it's state RSA, I think it's just somewhere along the line, the exact wording didn't get into the zoning.
So if you want to send that to me,
Yeah, let me send it to you.
we could just do it as a housekeeping thing, probably.
Yeah.
Not have to,
And I think, and just another thing too, I think you have something in here about the $10,000 estimated value of work, not, let me read that you have this.
Yeah, not read, go.
Because it's, what's that?
Sorry.
Oh.
so
But
we,
there's wording in there that it was kind of like a catch-all where if some things weren't required to have a building permit, but you did $10,000 in value of work.
and that's not legal.
Alterations to an existing
Yeah.
building or structure within the existing footprint that do not exceed $10,000 in estimated value shall not require a permit.
And that's not legal, right?
Well, I like that in a way because there's, like when someone does a kitchen, there's wording in here about things that aren't required, like when you do new cabinets and new countertops.
We don't have to require a permit anyhow legally, so we can craft whatever, that 10,000 isn't illegal, even if it's not
Okay.
consistent.
But usually in a, like a total remodel, they're doing electrical and plumbing, so that's where they're gonna need a permit anyway.
So if somebody's installing hardwood in their house, taking up the wall carpet, and it costs them 30,000 to put.
Here's a good example, for that $10,000, that's.
Did you really want a permit for that?
You know?
Well, the problem we ran into is.
I'm just asking.
Well, that's-
Is that the kind of-
I mean, we went through this exhaustively.
I mean, 10,000 is a good number, but 10,000 when, and 10,000 for what?
Right, but when you get into the weeds of defining this work versus that work, it was, you know, I mean, it really, we ended, I think we saw that issue, but
Yeah.
we kept coming back to it because how else, you know, how do you define, you know, each type of work being done?
Right, and the value of your house just went up, you know what I'm saying, because of that. Not by that much, but it did, you know, and I mean, there's some extremes in this town, you know. I got a $120,000 kitchen over there right now. That's just a kitchen. So, you know, is it fair to everyone else who's a taxpayer in town to, you know, also you got this beautiful kitchen, custom everything, and tiles from Italy, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the value of the house goes way up, and you go to sell it, you know, it reflects in the price of the house. So I mean, it's something to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys kicked this around a lot.
Not really, but.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
sure-
we did when we came up with.
Last time it was talked about, it probably got kicked around.
Yeah.
And the question is, if we're gonna kick it around again, what kinds of things should we kick around?
Oh.
Should we bump it
Yeah.
up to 20?
But,
Like 10 grand, you know, you can buy a tub for your toilet, you know, your bathroom for that.
right.
But you can do a lot of electrical work.
Well,
You can do some work for 10,000 that you would want a permit
Well,
for.
exactly, that's what I'm saying, it's not
Yeah,
the
it's
dollar amount
product versus
necessarily
service.
as much as is the kind of stuff that's happening that you really want to
It's a load-bearing wall.
push, you know?
Right, yeah.
It doesn't have to be plumbing or electrical, you know, this wall is fine, but that wall is not, and it's the same value in terms of workmanship either way.
And then again, somebody may add something that's, as you suggest, it's Venetian marble or some sort of thing, and you look at it and they loved it, it cost them a lot of money, and everybody else looks at it and goes,
There you go. Yeah.
They paid what?
Did they what for that? I wouldn't pay a nickel for that. It's all a matter of taste.
But yeah, I think there's the woman, she's from North Country Council,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I'll be working with her on a couple of these
Okay, great.
things. And just
We appreciate it.
so she'll look at the wording and make sure it corresponds with what the building code says.
Great.
And it's only that back section, I believe, in the zoning. It's basically
Right.
section 16 and all
Section
that, I
16,
believe. Yeah, everything
Yeah.
else doesn't have to do with building.
Good opportunity at this point, if there's anything that you go through on this that we need to be doing
Yeah, right,
differently,
take a look at, right.
please tell us.
Yeah, I will, yep, for sure.
And so you will be able to contact Danica, you'll know how to contact Danica Malone, you saw her name on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll talk to
Great.
Julie and I'll get her number.
Yeah,
I'll call
great.
her. Yeah, sometime next week.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate you being here.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Good job.
thank you.
I gave you a good job.
There you go.
All right.
That's all right.
We've gone over our time, but that's okay. Kathleen,
Okay, capital improvement stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on already in town. The solar panel issue, that's been addressed, and we've had meetings on that, I mean, the town's had meetings on that kind of stuff, and that's progressing. The fire department, with whether they should or should not have, you know, a new building, or whether they should fix up the old building. I know they're getting quotes on all kinds of architectural stuff and what's going to take place with that, so that's another capital improvement that's taking place. The bridge going over the the halls there.
Yeah.
That's another capital improvement that's costing money and things like that. The fourth issue is the preschool at school. That's another capital improvement, I'll call it that. And I think one of the things that needs to be addressed, but maybe not so, is groundwater issue for another department. So there's a lot of things that are going on already in town. It's just a question of getting it all together to find out how far along they've come. And so, anyway.
Now, is there the money already allocated for these various projects?
They can't be allocated until they come up with it, how much it's going to actually cost.
Oh, okay, for the fire.
So the fire station, nothing's allocated there.
Right,
No.
but for the solar.
The solar,
That's
we have had a thing on that, and it's a question of where we're going to be putting them. I think one of them happens to be the fire department. The roof was conducive for that, so and that all depends on if they put a new building up or they fix the old one. So that's up in the air as far as the money goes. The preschool, they've already looked at that and gone about that a couple different ways, and they still haven't come up with a solution on that one. I know we do have the money allocated for the
Valley Bridge,
yeah. Cross Bridge.
Yeah, that's already been.
And, but other than that, just a question of when everybody, because they all have small committees going on with all these projects. We can get a better handle on what's going on as far as money goes, but I don't think they know right now.
Now, Scott, you mentioned one of our earlier meetings about talking to public folks and bringing input on things that may not be as immediate as the ones you're talking about. Will we be able to schedule some public opportunities to do that with your subcommittee, or do we need,
I think when we get a better handle on it, where it all, before having a meeting, we have to actually present information to people so they can look at it before we can have any comments on anything.
Yeah, I was looking for like new things, new opportunities, things I don't know about, you don't know about. That may.
Well, the problem is that we only have so much money we can use every year from the town people. We can't present them with 10 things all at once and say, hey, listen, we need to do this.
No, the whole point of the capital improvements plan is that you're looking ahead and you say, well, these are the capital things that are going to happen and that we're going to need to get the money for it. And so if you know this particular project was going to be done in 5 years, then you set aside money.
Yes, I understand that, yes.
So that was the whole point of, updating. We look at the plan that you have now, and are there other things that we need to be planning for? Which is when we did the original capital improvements plan, and also with the update, is that each one of the departments did a wish list, a wants and needs list, and
When did we put this on?
That was
2009, I think.
2009 was the last look at it, but it wasn't done in 2009.
It was
done
originally done in like 2003 or something.
Yes.
Or even 6 maybe, it might have been 6 that was the last full one.
Yeah, but what's so hard about that is the fact the money,
2006 was the last time. So.
the money changes all the time. And what you have like for the solar panels, for example, if they need to put the solar panels on the fire department, they have to have certain kinds of a roof, and is it going to be made up? Is it going to be an improvement, or is it going to be whole new? And they will know that for 3 or 4 years, because they have to get the only reason I know that is because my son's on the committee for that kind of stuff, and that they have to go with an architect, and they have to get this, and this. So you can't say it's going to cost you $4 million. And start putting money aside for that, if that might not be correct.
As far as solar panels, you need to have the structure, the building has to be strong enough to hold it.
Yes, and it's not right now, the roof is not on the current fire department. It cannot hold.
Well, it's also the age of the roof and the positioning and all that. So I think
town offices are really good for it, the library's not.
Yeah, but I think we were also thinking, we weren't going to do them on the ground because of the wiring and electrical that we would have to do. But for the fire station, also on that committee. We're just in the phase of getting quotes to, like Kathy said, whether or not we should renovate and put an addition, 6th edition on this current fire station, which would probably be upwards of $300,000 to $350,000 versus building a new fire station, which would be somewhere probably between $2.5 and $3 million. Location, and these are raw numbers that we're, not even sure of. So we're in the committee stage right now where we're trying to figure out whether or not we want to bring an architect in. They can figure out what spaces are available. And then once, and also getting the full formal quotes from contractors that we've already got 3 informal quotes of how much it would cost to renovate and bring the building up to code, etc. And from there, we want to do public comment meetings and a tour of the fire station, things like that. So we sort of have a timeline that we're putting together on bringing the public in to look at things, because you can't go to the public with, hey, by the way, we want to renovate the fire station for $300,000 without them seeing what we're talking about or recommending it. We also have other bonds that are still out that are, for the town road buildings and maintenance buildings and things. So there's a lot of other things to consider before we do anything to propose to the taxpayers what we want to do.
Right, and a capital improvements plan isn't a budget.
Yeah.
It's a forward-thinking plan, and it can have, this might cost this much to this much, depending on, how it goes. We don't need to have hard numbers for a capital improvements plan. It's really just a roadmap as to what are the things that...
What kind of things might we in the next 10 years? And that's 10 years looking forward, it's a lot of years.
Costs change.
And things do change, and for example, it's not likely we're going to be asking in a capital improvements plan for the public climbing wall. To be put in the center. That's probably not one, it might come up. It probably won't fit in, but, something somebody might come up with to say, what about town-wide Wi-Fi, for example, as a possibility within 10 years.
We can't even agree to them for Channel 3, so,
I appreciate, but within 10 years, consider that our technology will be changing in those 10 years. In 10 years, our average age in town is going to be 72. If we don't have constant turnover of people leaving.
Someone young by your house.
There's no way we can determine that.
And we have no idea about that. Perhaps 10 years from now, instead of 100 homes on Airbnb, maybe we'll have 500 homes on Airbnb. Those are all possibilities and that may occur. And capital improvement plan really needs to take a look and try to think out of the box about what kind of needs we may have as a community between now and 2029, 2030. And what are what are those things?
Well, the wish list, I would love to have all underground wiring in here, and a septic system and a sewer system for all the groundwater and everything else that might get infected, but it didn't happen in 1988, and here it is 2019, and it's still not going to happen because it's costs money, and the taxpayers don't want to have to pay more money. Especially if they're 72.
How old is the fire station anyway?
Oh gosh, I don't know what the
I
original date is. It
can't
has
believe that
5
needs to be
editions on it.
replaced. I just,
It's decrepit.
Yes.
Is it really?
It's
You should take it to-
Oh yeah, we'll be getting into it. It's really,
Who built the damn thing
up to
then?
Likely
Oh,
somebody
it's
built it
old.
with the idea that it would last for another 10 years until they needed to replace
But
it.
it's very old, the original part of the building. But
Talk to B. Davis about it.
B. Davis, oh my goodness, we
Yeah.
don't need no new fire station.
No, we don't need that.
Wait, and
Damn it.
that's way back in the back of the room every time too. But,
Keep
some of the
that
other
in
things to
mind.
think about are certainly a new fire station and an ambulance. We talk about that a lot too, and conversation comes up when we talk about the fire station. Do we want to build out, do we want to consider building it with an ambulance in it, and Or what are we gonna do with the fire station that's right underneath the selectman's office, and how is that gonna work out in the next 10 years? So there are a lot of other conversations that
Yeah.
do happen.
That
And
immediately need to be addressed,
Right.
rather than a wish list of something
Right,
10 years from now.
but to your point around the public's willingness to pay out, shell out bucks, some of the things may not happen within the next 6 months or the next 18 months.
Mhm.
It may be within that 10-year span.
Yeah.
I love the new roads though. You gotta like
Yeah, I
that.
do, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
My car doesn't bottom out anymore.
Fortunately, we didn't have to pay for them
Yeah.
directly.
State does, yeah.
We're paying for some of it.
No,
No,
that's
not
all state
roads.
roads.
It's all
State
state,
roads.
it's all state, that's why the state did it. I don't know why they went that far up my cut or not, because that's not state road, but they,
Well, my road's not a state road,
I know.
and that's $99,000.
Well, hold on, I'll get you a bill for that.
I got the bill. I got the bill. We're gonna pay it tomorrow.
And they also went further up on, the, I'm not familiar with the roads as far, but
They-
when you
they-
go up Black Mountain, they went further up by the Davis's
Yeah,
place.
Dundee Road.
Yeah,
They did a lot of roads.
they repaved Dundee, which they repaved about 5 years ago, which I thought was pretty stupid, but whatever.
Yeah, they
They only went up to
were
Mountain
several
View, they
pieces
didn't go
of
all the way. We joked about the flooding here, would that be, would we have to deal with that?
That's a
The
hundred
flood.
floodplain.
Yeah. No?
There's really nothing you can do about
I
it.
was just gonna
I
say,
mean,
what do
it's-
you do?
Yeah.
Move up higher on the mountain.
Just don't build it.
Just don't, make sure you don't build anything there.
Just a golf course, of course,
All right.
nice game.
So we're moving forward.
Okay.
Things are moving, that's good, thank you. This is a very unpleasant task. That we're talking about the rest of this stuff here. Betsy, have you put together stuff to review material for board secretary position?
I did, I wrote up, I couldn't find anywhere a description of what the board secretary, who's a, you know, a planning board member does. We had a list of what a paid secretary does specifically for applications. So I spent a little time writing up what I see as the tasks that both people would be responsible for. I'm so delighted that Dave seems interested in taking it on.
That'd be great.
Wow.
That would
As
be
he
really
laughs.
nice.
All right, so I guess I'm going to have to accept your resignation.
Thank you, thank you.
And that Betsy's resigned, we have a responsibility as a board to vote in a new secretary. I understand we
Review
have,
all of the applications?
I understand we have some interest among the, anyone interested in this role? Please raise your hand. Oh,
God almighty. Go for it.
seeing that we have an interested party, do I hear a motion?
I move that they,
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I just
Dave.
want to say, it's been an honor, Betsy. to-
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Are you excited? You must be thrilled. It's a good transition.
It's a huge loss in many ways for me. It's hard to
Betsy,
believe.
these are for you.
Oh.
That's actually from the garden club as opposed to the planning board. but
You will be sorely missed.
We're gonna miss you. Great.
Not an easy thing.
Do you have any
Even though
words
you
for us?
plan on it,
Yeah.
it's still
You can
not
come back
easy,
anytime.
right?
Do
Yeah,
you
I was
have any
gonna
words
say.
for us?
You know,
Do you have
Thursdays.
any words for us?
No, just, it's been a fun thing to be on. You know, I can't begin to compete with Sarah's time on the board. You, what, 35 now or something years?
Well, what's it, I was from 88 till now. Yeah, I don't know how many years that is, but.
But I've really enjoyed it. I felt I've learned a lot and I've worked with a lot of fun people. So it's been
You've
really
been on for a long time.
Yeah, I think I started in 2001.
Yeah,
Mm.
okay. So that's
So I earned my stripes maybe.
right.
A couple.
Various
Well,
offices.
I know I'm here because Betsy kind of twisted my arm. It's like, you'd be good at this.
Done.
Well, you know, one of
It's a-
my things about this board is so so many times in a planning board, no, we aren't gonna do that, no, we wouldn't approve that, no. And I think in Jackson, we're not ready to just approve everything, but we want to work with people to make it so that it's feasible for people to do what would be good for the town, what good for them, good for the town, and I love that part of it. I think we do a good job with that.
I know I'm a pushover.
Kathleen, her requirements for me was I was breathing and I live in Jackson.
That's all right, that's a good thing. It still works for you.
Thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. We'll all miss you.
And then I've spoken with Bronwyn. I don't know if everyone has met a woman named Bronwyn Malverde. She's probably 25 years old, 28 years old, I'm not sure. Her parents live up across from Gloria Hutchings. And she's in Granite State College finishing up some program, I think. I've known her since she was about 10 years old because her family used to live down in New Jersey, taught at the same school where Sam taught. And the fact that she's interested in doing this, I spoke with her a little bit about it, and then I sent her all sorts of information. And she still seems interested despite all the information.
I figured if you talked to her and she was still interested, that was an immediate yes.
Great.
I figured you'd scare her off otherwise.
I think
You're full-time now, the whole family is, right?
I don't know if Greg, he often has been a teacher, a principal in schools in China. And I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but he's got 3 children, and at least Bronwyn is here a lot of the time.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll be a long-term thing, but maybe, you never know.
She loves being up here, so I wouldn't be surprised if she stays as long as, she was saying that it seems up here you have to have several different jobs, and this would be one of many. And that seems to be quite true.
You said she's in school, or she's...
She is right now doing exams, I guess, for the end of the summer program. And so she couldn't come tonight because she had some sort of program on tonight, class or something. So yeah, I don't know what she's finishing. I didn't ask her about her academics.
I was just curious as to what field she's in, right?
I don't know. I didn't ask, sorry.
As to whether it had...
Is that a hint?
Well, I have a 90-minute limit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We started at 7:05.
You have 2 minutes.
Do you have any other conversations? Please speak now, or do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move.
All right, I'll second.
You are moving, aren't you?
I think this is the first meeting I've been that I hadn't had, Dick or I hadn't had to make that motion. And by the way,
All in favor, please?
Aye.
in the minutes, I was the